Why is intimacy so hard? What's up guys, Matty B here and welcome to No Going Back. Today I wanted to talk about intimacy, what it is, what it isn't, and why it's so hard to have. I've been both very fortunate and unfortunate to have first-hand experience in relationship dynamics that are based on intimacy and pseudo-intimacy. Growing up, my family dynamic was one based on confluence and unmet expectations. Basically, family members not voicing their wants or opinions for fear of upsetting the family dynamic. These members of the family unit had roles, and these rigid roles meant everyone had their place. The most important aspect was protecting the appearance of the family unit at all costs. This dynamic meant that the needs of the individuals were always secondary to the needs of the family. Unfortunately, what this led to was a lack of individualization and a depersonalization, both of which I believe have been major contributing factors to the development of my avoidant personality disorder. My family also had this way of bonding that involved scapegoating and triangulation as a way of creating intimacy or pseudo-intimacy. Basically gossiping about others to create the feeling that you were privy to some secret about one of the other members of the family and felt that there was trust being established. Contrast this with my relationship with my partner, which is based on love, trust, individuality, and exploration of feelings. In this relationship, we as a couple are still a priority to maintain, but not at the expense of the individuals within it. Basically, the sum of the parts are as important to the health of the whole as the whole is. We both encourage one another to explore individual hobbies and have interests outside of the relationship. It's about growth rather than playing a role. If something's bothering one of us, we're encouraged to express it so that we can figure it out and make the relationship stronger as a result. Intimacy for us is attained through the expression of thoughts and feelings about ourselves, our goals, and how we can grow as a couple, and not through the mechanisms of pseudo-intimacy. So what is pseudo-intimacy? Pseudo-intimacy is a sense of closeness without the risk of being truly vulnerable. Think of it as that initial period of a relationship where you're both putting your best foot forward. It's very surface level and you're only focusing on the positives or what you have in common. The problem with this is that it never gets any deeper, and life isn't like that. At some point, there will be stress. Whether it comes from inside or outside the relationship, the problem with pseudo-intimacy is that it never allows for that to happen. A disagreement or an argument can lead to members of the relationship never truly feeling seen or heard. As such, their needs are rarely often met if they're at odds with the perception of an ideal relationship. Pseudo-intimacy is formed on the belief that the ideal relationship is one without stress or friction. Unfortunately, we need stress and friction in order to grow. In families where pseudo-intimacy is the norm, everyone is ascribed roles that you must play. These roles are rigid and they never change even once a child reaches adulthood. You may be familiar with terms such as scapegoats, triangulation, and confluence. Confluence is basically the agreement to never disagree. It's the unspoken agreement with everyone in the family to play their ascribed roles. If someone steps outside their role, they are punished or ostracized. Scapegoating is when one member of the family is the person who gets blamed for everything. Life isn't free of stress, but when that happens, the scapegoat takes the blame. This often shows up as, our family would be perfect if only it weren't for the scapegoat. That can be direct, such as abusing a child, or it can be more indirect, such as talking about that person behind their back and ganging up on them. Triangulation is a form of manipulation where a third person is brought into a dynamic to be used as a tool to make a relationship stronger. In this case, the scapegoat is often gossiped about or excluded from things and used as a common enemy to strengthen the bond between two people. It's essentially a divide and conquer technique. As I've gotten more experience, I've started to notice that this is all extremely common. It's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Why is intimacy so difficult for some people? Intimacy is difficult because it requires complete vulnerability. It means exposing yourself and your biggest fears, flaws, and weaknesses to another person. The very things you were shamed for when you were younger, either in school or by your parents, are the very things you've spent your entire life avoiding and numbing. They're the very things you're forced to face to experience true intimacy. True intimacy is painful. It's at times unbearable. It's like sitting in a fire when all you want to do is get out. Everyone craves intimacy, but very few get to truly experience it because we were never brought up to embrace our weaknesses or flaws, the very things that make us human. As such, we get very good at numbing our pain, filling that intimacy void with other things, be it food, drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, shopping, or binge-watching TV. Whatever we can find to temporarily make the loneliness and pain go away. And as harmful as this addictive behavior can be, it's not our fault. What we're searching for is a way to numb the pain caused by our source relationships. By that I mean the relationships of our primary caregivers. Our source relationships imprint on us this idea that we're not enough, that we're somehow flawed, broken, or missing pieces. We take that belief that we're not enough, and because we believe we will never be enough, we do our best to make sure we feel enough. That's F-I-L-L, not F-E-E-L. So we numb. We numb any way we can to make the pain less. Because of my upbringing, this didn't come naturally to me. My experience with building intimacy has been challenging. When I first got into the relationship I'm in now, I really struggled, especially when we'd have disagreements or differing opinions. What made me push through that was that I'd reached my limit. I'd had 29 years of not allowing myself to truly be myself, of not letting myself be seen, flaws and all, of craving intimacy more than anything and never getting to experience it. So where does true intimacy start? It starts by retraining yourself to feel that you are enough. It means finding a non-shaming support network or relationship that allows you to be imperfect, to have flaws, to express your weaknesses without judgment, to build the mental evidence that you can be yourself and not be shamed for it. Intimacy involves sharing yourself with someone, not just the perfect side, but the negative stuff too, like the fears and vulnerabilities. In some relationships, that can be really scary, especially if you're terrified of the other person leaving you. I don't believe this comes naturally to everyone. It's just that some people are able to learn the skill earlier than others. For me, it takes work. It is something that I have to work at continually. I've spent my whole life being terrified that people I care about will leave me. Now I'm in a relationship, I'm learning to embrace who I am, even the fearful parts. Even the flaws or things I believed would be the reason I would drive someone away, I'm sharing that with her and admitting how I feel. And it's liberating. I've never before in my life felt as accepted and loved as I do now. And I know that if it weren't for the courage to be vulnerable and share those fearful parts of myself, I wouldn't have the kind of intimacy I do now. Intimacy is vulnerability. Vulnerability is the accumulation of lots of little moments. It can be sharing a drawing you did even though you were told when you were growing up that you weren't good enough to be an artist. It can be singing out loud even though you might have been told you weren't good enough. It can be as simple as having an opinion that differs from someone else and being brave enough to share it. If you want to experience intimacy, you need to start letting yourself experience vulnerability. Be brave and let that part of yourself that you're so scared for someone else to see, be seen. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I really hope that you've gotten some value out of this video. If you do like the video, go ahead and hit the like button and make sure to hit subscribe as I'm going to be uploading more videos on topics similar to this in the future. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and until next time, be kind to one another.